Please welcome Arne Duncan, CRED founder, Malik Tiger, CRED participant, Wendy Jones, Youth Peace Center of Roseland founder, and Roxanne Patel-Shepelavi, the Philadelphia Citizen co-executive director.
I'd like to welcome our guests here who are going to talk about CRED, Create Real Economic Destiny, a gun violence prevention program in Chicago. So we have Arne Duncan, former superintendent of Chicago Public Schools, then President Barack Obama's Secretary of Education from 2009 to 2015, now managing partner of the Emerson Collective and founder of gun violence prevention organization CRED in Chicago. Malik Tiger is a Southside Chicago resident and a participant of CRED since 2017. And Wendy Jones is founder and executive director of the Youth Peace Center of Roseland in Chicago's Southside, a community organization that mentors teens and offers youth the skills needed to avoid conflict and violence, and that works closely with CRED in Roseland. I want to start by sort of laying out a little bit of how we can tell that CRED has been successful at fighting gun violence in Chicago. So, as in Philadelphia, this has been a pretty bloody year in Chicago. After 3 consecutive years of double-digit drops in gun violence, shootings in the city are up 52%. Some 3,000 people have been shot and nearly 700 have been killed. Something that, of course, touches you all very personally. But in the Southside neighborhood of Roseland, where you launched CRED in 2016, it's a different story. Shootings in Roseland this year have actually dropped by 33%, which is pretty incredible given the year we've had. So I just want to start by asking you why that is. How does CRED work? Can you lay out how the program is succeeding?
Well, this is super complicated and complex work, so there's never one, easy answer. But I'll say a couple things, or 2 things are different. Maybe 3 things are different in Roseland, and actually in a really, horrible year, give me a lot of hope for where we can and should go as a city. First, as you said, we started in Roseland over 4 years ago with Mr. and Mrs. Jones and the Youth Peace Center. Over the past 4 years, we've touched collectively over 300 men, about 310 men. So just with time, you start to hit a critical mass and are working with all the different groups in the community. That's the first thing, is that, if you're trying to do not just individual transformation, but neighborhood violence suppression, you have to work with enough men and women and enough groups. And we just have had enough time to do that. That's one. Secondly, what we try and do is really comprehensive. There's sort of 5 pillars to our work. First, there's street outreach, which is sort of like our HR function. They go out and recruit the men into our programs. Once guys come into us, every guy is assigned a life coach, and we have just extraordinary life coaches. Malik has just an amazing life coach. We have a clinical team to really help our guys work through a lifetime often of trauma. We've had many guys get high school diplomas. We have an education piece. And then at the back end, we have a jobs team. And just having that comprehensive set of services, we think is hugely important. And then the final thing is just having the resources. We're spending about $10 million a year in Roseland. And if you think about the 15 most violent neighborhoods in Chicago to scale, you're looking at $150 to $200 million to do this kind of work everywhere we need to. And we need to sort of a public sector investment. We can't do that all philanthropically. But I think those things are the key parts. The final 2 things I'll say is that you just need amazing community partners. CRED's a small team. We're never going to be large. We're never going to have an army. And having people like Mr. and Mrs. Jones, so it's not just their work, it's their life's work. They live in the community. They're not going anywhere. They were at it long before we came in the neighborhood. And then you'll hear from Malik. Malik is just an extraordinary young man. What he's been through is pretty unreal, what he continues to do with his life. But I always say he's amazing, but he's not unique. There are lots and lots and lots of great young men like Malik Tiger around the city who just need an opportunity to do something different. And that's why I feel such a sense of urgency to scale and do more.
Yeah, so Malik, I want to get to your story in just a second. But Arne, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is what strikes me particularly about CRED and what seems to make it unique is the part that's in the name, that economic destiny piece. So tell me about how did that become part of the work and why is it so important?
A couple things. I would say we're working with men, not boys.
Right.
They are going to eat. They're going to pay rent. They're going to take care of their kids. And it's sort of up to us whether that's going to be in the street economy, in the illegal economy, which in Chicago all too often almost inevitably leads to violence, or in the legal economy. And so our goal is to really transition, our young men and women from the street economy to the legal economy. So that's sort of the genesis of this. The other thing is just so important for people watching us to understand there's this myth out there that everybody selling drugs is making a lot of money in the streets. The truth is lots of guys are risking their lives, they're getting arrested, they're getting shot at, and literally, I'm not exaggerating, literally making less than minimum wage.
Wow.
Very few people are getting rich in the streets. And the fact that as a society, we won't commit to just giving people a basic job and a basic living. And I always ask our men when they come into our program, we usually start guys at $12, $13, $14 an hour. I sort of ask, is that a pay increase for you or a pay decrease? It's usually about half and half. For about half our guys, it's actually a pay increase, believe that or not. And for those it's a pay decrease, they're happy to take it because it's not fast money, because it's a stable check, because they're safer. They're willing to make a little short-term financial sacrifice. And so there's so many myths and misperceptions that people don't understand. And just helping our men become viable economically in the legal economy, then it takes away any desire or need to sort of be engaged in the streets.
So that's opportunity. I mean, giving people the education and skills, but also the jobs. I mean, there have to be jobs available for them.
Yeah. I have to say, I think we're solving as much, or probably more so, an economic problem than we are trying to solve a crime problem.
Interesting. So Malik, does that fit with sort of your experience that part of what led you here is this was the lack of opportunity when you were growing up?
Yeah, like pretty much what he said. It was a lack of opportunity and a lack of, outlets that we had in the community. But as far as with the whole CRED thing, you feel me, like it gave us an opportunity, it gave us a change, something that we can look forward to. We had people that embrace us, because like I said, a lot of people don't understand that we're afraid of y'all just as much as y'all afraid of us. Because at the end of the day, we're afraid of getting shut down. Y'all afraid of us for a different reason, and we're afraid of y'all for our reason. So I feel like, it created opportunity, and that's a lot of reason why a lot of gun violence and a lot of things do happen in our community, because idle mind is the devil's playground. You ain't got nothing to do. You don't have funds to take care of your family. You gonna figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they throw you in the jungle, you're gonna figure out how to eat.
So tell me your story a little bit. I mean, what was your experience? You had a pretty horrific experience with gun violence, right?
Yeah, I ended up getting shot 6 times. I got shot in the back of my head, I got shot in my hand, got shot in my shoulder, and I got shot a couple times in my back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's horrible.
Yeah. And it's like the part of getting shot, that ain't even really the most baddest part. Is just the part of rehabilitating yourself and getting yourself back to PTSD, you know what I'm saying? Not being scared or just being afraid to be laying up in your blood. That's traumatizing. You know what I'm saying?
And after that happened, I mean, did you find yourself back out on the street, or was that a turning point for you?
No, to be honest, when I got shot 2014.
Okay.
And it ain't slowed me down. It turned me up. It's just like you know what I'm saying? It put a sense of flame and a sense of anger in me that I didn't know was there before. I felt like somebody could do it to me, I could do it to them. I had to get myself to a place that I don't want to hurt nobody. I don't want to be hurt either. You know what I'm saying? So I had to start loving myself a little bit more.
And how did you get there? I mean, was that something that you did on your own, or was that?
Oh no, I couldn't have did it without Arne. I couldn't have did it without especially my life coach, Mr. Hicks. Okay. Like I said, that's all around guy. He 24/7. Called him in the middle of the night, just like it was a situation. I called him last night. He real encouraging. Like that's, you feel me? Like that's my go-to guy.
So how did you find CRED? I mean, did an outreach worker come find you?
No, you feel me? I actually always knew the Joneses, but you feel me? I kind of, like I said, I kind of strayed away. I had my own thing going on. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't really looking for the direction that they was willing to give, but I was riding past, walking past, and I ended up seeing them, and they was like, "Man, come, y'all come in," telling us about the program, telling us what they had to offer. Then they started feeding us. Then they started paying us to come. So I'm like, all right.
So, Arne, let me just ask you a question. Part of what you do is you do give a stipend to the participants for being part of the program, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a stipend that starts at a lower base and sort of grows over time as they, progress through the program. But yes, we absolutely, again, I said before, Malik is going to eat. He is going to feed his kids. He's going to have a roof over his head. And I want him to be able to do that, making some money. And I think guys often almost think we're lying. You're going to, pay me to get my high school diploma. You're going to pay me to get some counseling. You're going to pay me to, come and have breakfast and lunch. It's like, yeah, we are, because we value your time. And we want you to, like you and I and Mrs. Jones, we want to pay you for doing some productive things. It's no different than all of our jobs. And so it's nobody's getting rich. It's actually, again, almost a heartbreakingly small amount of money. But it is very important to me that we value their time and give them an incentive to work on themselves, academically, socially, emotionally, build their job skills. And that's part of, again, the transition from the street life to a different life.
So, so I know that part of what makes this work, and you mentioned this, Arne, is working with organizations that are already in the community. So, Mrs. Jones, I want to ask you a little bit about the Youth Peace Center in Roseland. So you've been part of this community. You and your husband have been part of this community for 25 years, working.
Yes, very close. Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of work do you do in the community, and how has your work changed with CRED and sort of focusing on gun violence?
So my husband and I, we didn't always work together. We always, both of us worked with young people. I was a former Chicago teacher and ended up coming into Roseland with the notion of educating children in a different way. And when my husband left the courthouse, he and I decided to work together and work with older kids. At that same time, there was a lot of violence going on with young people. There was a high school very close to us. We knew when the high school let out every day because we would hear helicopters, and we were very concerned about what we were hearing and seeing, kids fighting, leaving school, gunshots. There were a variety of things that were concerning to us. That definitely led to us getting involved with the young people in the community at a higher level capacity in terms of starting to see that there was a great need to work in an anti-violence arena. Invited a few people in. Before we knew it, we were there on a Friday evening with probably close to 100 young people. Wow. And that is what made us go into a different direction in terms of dedicating our time and our service. Chicago CRED came into Roseland, I believe, in 2016, and we helped them, pull together their first cohort of young men. We were following their lead, and they were following ours as well, just kind of working together. We both had the same cause and charge in mind. It was a good fit. And so what we do is pretty much what Arne said earlier, just provide the wraparound services in our facility that are unique to our young men to help them create a different pathway where they can see some hope in their future. A lot of it is a lack of hope. When you've been beat down, you're coming from a poor a place of poverty. It's very difficult to see hope. And Chicago CRED, without a doubt, definitely opened up some new opportunities for the young people in that community, and they started to see hope. And that's what everyone wants to see in this lifetime, is that there's an opportunity for them to have a time and place to have the money coming into their homes to support themselves and their family appropriately.
So one of the things that I know other organizations that have done this kind of work, like Ceasefire or Focus Deterrence, and I'm wondering if this is similar in Chicago, which is that the gun violence is perpetrated, and also the victims of gun violence are a small population of people. It's sort of a small identifiable population of people. Is that the case in Chicago?
Just quickly, that's exactly right. Our entire focus is working with the young men and women most likely to shoot and be shot. Mm-hmm. That profile is often literally the same person. That profile is someone like Malik. Unfortunately in Chicago, it's basically young Black men, 17 to 25, 26. Okay. And it's not everybody in the community by any stretch. And the epiphany I had, which shows how not smart I am, was that if you want to stop shooting, you have to work with shooters, and you have to work with the people doing the shooting. And so that's entirely our focus. It's often funny, guys will say, I got a criminal background, I got a felony, I got a violent felony. You sure you want me? I'm like, yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly who
you're my target audience.
You're right at home. That's what we want.
So, you mentioned how much money it costs to run this program in Roseland, and how much it would cost to run all over the city. And there's of course a debate raging right now in America about defunding the police, which means really shifting funds from the police to organizations that are not police forces for certain work. I mean, does the work that you do you think fit into that conversation?
Well, it's interesting. Very much so. In the first couple of years, I wasn't doing anything in the policy space. Frankly, we were just doing the work and really trying to figure it out. And we're still trying to figure it out every day. But I almost feel like a moral obligation now to do more in the policy space and started to talk about it. And defund, the word defund is a pretty loaded word that people don't love, but reimagine the police, reinvent the police. And the math of it here in Chicago is fascinating. For every dollar we spend on violence prevention programs like the Youth Peace Center, helping more and more Mr. and Mrs. Jones across the city do this work, helping more young men like Malik. For every dollar we spend there, we spend $150 on the police. It's a wildly disproportionate investment. Chicago is 3 to 4 times more violent than LA, but we have twice as many police per citizen as LA, twice as much. Chicago's 6 times more violent than New York. We have the same amount of police. So the reality here in Chicago is that more police has not equaled more safety. I think people often equate police with safety. And I just would love to see, you don't have to take all their money, but just a nickel of every dollar, a dime of every dollar go to violence prevention, stopping this. And police will tell you their job is to solve yesterday's crime. Our job is to stop tomorrow's shooting, the next day's shooting. And I don't think as a city we're investing wisely. And I'm convinced if just a small percent of that police budget or something else went into violence prevention work, again, not across the city, it's 15 neighborhoods producing 80% of the violence in Chicago. It's highly concentrated. So it's truly just 15 neighborhoods that we could wrap our arms around them and sort of scale the kind of work that we're doing in Roseland and help, a couple thousand young men like Malik. I'm convinced, as difficult at times as this is, as a horrible year as this is, I've honestly never been more hopeful about where we can be. And so, yes, reimagining the police, putting some more resources, just a little bit more resources into violence prevention, more life coaches, more clinicians, more jobs teams, more education work. That's what we need. That's what we need.
I ended up graduating, not graduate, but I ended up passing it, and I ended up getting me a job at the Greater Chicago Food Depository.
Oh, that's great. What kind of work do you do there?
I'm an operation worker. So I pretty much go out, you feel me, you know what I'm saying, work on the operation, pick orders, come in and out, and it's like a warehouse facility.
That's great. And you, and is that the first time that you had a job in the legal economy?
Yes. First job. And like I told Arne before, like to me, it was pretty much a pay cut, but it was just like the convenience, like it's convenient. And I got a family now. Like I'm a man, I ain't no longer a boy, so I can't make childish decisions. I have to think about me, myself, and my son, because I got a little son now. So like I feel like it's great. You know what I'm saying? I get raises, so it still work out.
It's great.
Yeah, we offer a lot of workshops in our programming. So the guys can, they're going to learn a variety of things. And we have a group of phenomenal vendors that come in to teach a variety of workshops. And yeah, and one of the things in reference to reimagining of the police, we definitely need to take a look at putting more money into the mental health aspect of responding to police, substance abuse, more resources in the community, even subsidized employment for some of these young guys would be helpful. One of the things that I'm really have been thinking about a lot is just early intervention. We need to start with working with young men, even at the elementary school level. It's just really very important. We can't wait until our young men get to high school. We have to start earlier.
That's amazing. Arne, can I take you back to the beginning of this for you? What you worked in education for decades, right? And you, when you moved back to Chicago, you have focused on gun violence prevention. How did you get there?
Yeah, these are all sort of difficult conversations and very personal for all of us for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I'll just say, honestly, I started to lose friends to gun violence when I was a teenager. And I grew up playing basketball throughout the South and West Sides. And I had a series of guys that sort of helped protect me and give me safe passage in and out of neighborhoods, and started to lose some of them when I was, 14, 15, 16. I think that affects you and honestly maybe scars you in some ways. A little bit difficult to talk about. It's a little bit hard to process that as a kid. Didn't really have anyone to talk to. And then sort of fast forward, 20 years, 25 years to when I led the Chicago public schools for 7.5 years. There's a ton I'm proud of. I'd love to talk about all the successes and all, higher graduation rates. We talk about that all day. But on my watch, during my 7.5 years, Roxanne, on average, we had a Chicago public school student killed every 2 weeks. One child killed every 2 weeks due to gun violence. It was a staggering rate of loss. Yeah. And everything that's supposed to be hard, your academic achievement, budgets, labor management, operations. I don't say that stuff is easy, but it was way easier than 99% of the time. It was meeting parents after they had just lost their child. Yeah. And my wife and I had 2 young kids then, and going to their homes, going to those funerals, going to those classrooms where there's an empty desk and trying to, talk to a class of traumatized kids and make sense of the census is by far the hardest part of my job. And I don't think I know that we as adults, we as educators, we as leaders, we fail to keep our kids safe. And they grow up with a level of fear and trauma that's just stunning. I hate to say this, there's barely a child in the South and West Sides that don't know someone who's been shot and killed. They often know 5, 10, 15 people. Now, I've never been to Iraq. I've never been to Afghanistan. I've never been to a real war zone. But our kids are growing up in war zones, and we just have to do better. So for me coming home to Chicago from DC, this was very much unfinished business. Yeah. We just thought we had to do better. And Chicago had given me every opportunity, educationally, athletically, socially, culturally. So for me to come home and not work on this, I couldn't have lived it myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's terrible and beautiful. And it's sadly the story of Philadelphia and I think every big city in America. Okay, thank you all very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you really dug into the story in a way many don't. So I just really appreciate your thoughtfulness. And if we can do anything to be helpful going forward, just let us know.
I will. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
A special thank you to our sponsors.